The Wildlife Heritage Foundation of Wyoming was incorporated April 20th, 2000 as an independent charitable nonprofit corporation. The foundation's purpose is to provide financial support through philanthropy to critical wildlife conservation efforts in Wyoming. In 2003, the foundation developed the idea for the Wyoming Outdoor Hall of Fame. The primary purpose of the Hall of Fame is to honor those individuals, both living and posthumously, who have made significant, lasting lifetime contributions to the conservation of Wyoming's outdoor heritage. Each year, recognition will be given to people who have worked consistently over many years to conserve Wyoming's natural resources through volunteer service, environmental restoration, educational activities, visual and written media, the arts, and political and individual leadership. Another goal of the Hall of Fame is to educate the public about and promote the significance of Wyoming's rich outdoor heritage. The inductees will be solid role models for today's youth. The 2007 inductees are Burt and Meg Raines, Charles E. Chuck Ward, Earl Mitchell, Hans Kleiber. Hans Kleiber was born August 24, 1887 in Jägersdorf, Austria, on the eastern slope of the Sudeten mountain range. His parents' love for nature inspired Hans to learn about, love, and appreciate the beauty of the outdoors. He was an avid reader and was intrigued by the American frontier. At the age of 14, Hans quit school to work to help his family through a financial crisis. In 1900, he and his family immigrated to the U.S., where his father, a textile designer, found work in Massachusetts. He was quickly disillusioned with the Northeast, as it was not the America he dreamed of experiencing. Being fluent in German as well as French, Hans quickly learned the English language and immersed himself into reading outdoor magazines featuring the forests and mountains of the West. In addition, he had short-lived informal art training by way of a brief apprenticeship and time spent with friends in New Jersey, where he learned the principles of art and the use of paint. When he learned of the government's plan to establish a Forest Service, he made a personal decision to eventually become a part of this national project. In 1906, Kleiber moved west and joined the McShane Timber Company, based in the Bighorn Mountains, as he was too young for a civil service position. In 1908, he became a forest guard, and finally, after the long task of finalizing his American citizenship, he was appointed forest ranger in 1911. In 1920, he was designated as a ranger at large. Kleiber laid out many of the Bighorn Mountain roads and trails still used today, as well as exploring and mapping unknown areas in the Bighorn, Washakie, Wind River, and Bridger National Forests. He became an expert firefighter and was a trusted Forest Service firefighter crew boss in Minnesota, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Kleiber built and rebuilt telephone lines connecting Bighorn Mountain Ranger stations to aid in fire control. Hans resigned from the U.S. Forest Service in 1923 to pursue art full-time. His love of the Wyoming outdoors and his time spent there as a ranger showed through in his poetry, stories, and artwork. He was soon discovered by an Eaton's Dude Ranch guest who arranged for his first big show in Boston. Largely self-taught, Kleiber became a nationally known etcher. His work was shown around the U.S., including the National Museum in Washington, D.C. in 1944. Etchings that once sold for $10 are now worth hundreds. He also published a book of poetry called Songs of Wyoming, and a book of fanciful forest animal short stories called Daydreams and Fantasies. Hans Kleiber died at his home in Dayton, Wyoming on December 8, 1967. Kleiber's family donated his rustic 1920s log studio, along with art, furnishings, photos, and art supplies, to his hometown of Dayton, at the foot of the Bighorn Mountains. His love for the outdoors and wildlife lives on in the art he left behind. It continues to inspire people to find the places he stood and travel the trails he blazed as an early outdoor pioneer. Preservation and enjoyment of our mountains were his life's work. His artistic explorations grew from a need to express his love for the outdoors. Earl Mitchell was born on November 14, 1901, in Ethel, Missouri, the son of the late Henry Reese and Faye Troutman Mitchell. He traveled by wagon with his parents from Missouri to Wyoming's Wind River Mountains, arriving on April 26, 1906. The family settled on 160 acres in the sagebrush desert under the Wind River Range. His formal education ended after the 7th grade. However, he later served 2 terms in the House of Representatives and was honored with an honorary doctorate from the University of Wyoming. In 1909, he climbed his first mountain on an elk hunt with his father. What he saw shaped the rest of his life. "From the first time I saw them, I felt the mountains were my real home. Where else can a man get so close to heaven, to his Creator, with both feet on the ground?" He went on to travel more than 15,000 miles of Wind River trails and climbed in excess of 250 peaks. In 1975, the U.S. Geological Survey named Mitchell Peak, elevation 12,842, after Earl, and erected a plaque noting that he had climbed the peak 11 times. He went on to climb it another 10 times after the plaque was in place. Many other peaks, glaciers, and lakes in the Wind River Range have names suggested by Mitchell. Earl married Emma Nelson on June 4, 1925. They had 2 children, Anna M. Dew and William R. Mitchell. He worked for Union Pacific Railroad and guided fishermen in the mountains. During the Depression, they set up the first recreation area on the Pacific side of the Wind River Range and called it Mitchell's Fishing Camp. The only problem was, out of 319 lakes accessible from the camp, only 5 contained fish. To remedy the problem, Earl, along with his brother and father, horse-packed trout into the range to stock lakes that fish could not reach. The Game and Fish Department furnished the fish in 5-gallon milk cans, and over 8 years the Mitchells took them into more than 300 lakes. In essence, they took a fishing desert and turned it into a sportsman's paradise. In 1975, Earl wrote The Definitive Guide to Hiking in the Wind River Range, Wind River Trails. He helped mark trails and update maps for both the National Park Service and the U.S. Forest Service. His efforts opened the backcountry of the winds to many. In 1920, he bought his first camera and accumulated well over 100,000 photos as part of his legacy. He received many awards and citations during his lifetime, including special recognition from the Bridger-Teton Forest on their 75th anniversary. He was also recognized by both the California and Wyoming legislatures, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the dining hall at Western Wyoming Junior College was named for him and Emma. In addition, he has been the focus of countless articles in scores of magazines, and his photographs have appeared in many publications, including some in the Soviet Union. Until his death, November 13th of 1995, one day before his 94th birthday, Earl lived by the philosophy, take only pictures, leave only footprints, kill nothing but time. Burt Raines was born in New Jersey, and his wife Meg was born in Pennsylvania. The two met while attending Penn State. They vacationed in Jackson Hole in the 1950s and made the decision to move to Jackson Hole permanently upon retirement in the 1970s. Burt credits Meg for introducing him to the world of nature. Burt and Meg complement each other's talents and have worked as a team to make significant contributions towards the conservation and awareness of Wyoming's natural resources. Burt, with Meg as editor, has written 5 books, as well as a weekly natural history column for the Jackson Hole Nest for the past 28 years. His books include helpful guides to find and identify birds in the Jackson area, such as Birds of Grand Teton National Park and Surrounding Areas, Finding the Birds of Jackson Hole, and Winter Wings. Other books, Valley So Sweet and Curmudgeon Chronicles, focus on area history and include gleanings from his column. They were also the authors of the first Valley Bird Checklist, which continues to be revised and updated every few years. Meg discovered a hunting blind site on the Jackson Hole Elk Refuge, which archaeologists acknowledge as Raines Site 1. Together, Burt and Meg founded the Jackson Hole Bird Club in the 1970s that still meets monthly and provides a forum for residents and visitors to exchange information on bird observations. Burt has taught classes at the Teton Science School for many years. Burt and Meg have provided support to the Wyoming Game and Fish Department's non-game bird program through educating the public and providing records over the years on bird occurrence, distribution, and natural history. In recognition of the extraordinary contributions to the public's awareness of wildlife and the habitat necessary for its survival, Burt was awarded the prestigious Brungius Medal from the National Museum of Wildlife Art in 1999. Although Burt is no longer able to lead birding trips, he still answers numerous phone calls and emails requesting information on identification of birds and/or conservation. Meg continues to edit and critique Burt's column. Chuck Ward was born in Cheyenne, Wyoming, April 15, 1926, to Joe and Helen Ward. He attended school in LaGrange, Wyoming, graduating in 1944. He served in the U.S. Air Corps until 1946, then went on to attend the University of Montana, graduating with a B.S. degree in wildlife technology in 1950. He worked a short time as a research biologist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Montana. Then in 1951, Chuck began his 31-year career with the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. Initially, Ward worked in Cheyenne as an education assistant where he influenced the lives of many young people, sharing the conservation message. Many of those young people went on to pursue careers in the conservation arena. Chuck later became the game warden in Casper. Over the next 20 years, Chuck became the voice for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, doing radio programs 5 nights a week on K2 and KVOC radio stations. In addition, he became Mr. Game and Fish to nearly everyone in the state through bi-weekly Game and Fish reports on K2 TV. As a game warden, Chuck was tenacious. He was known to be out checking hunters and fishermen when they least expected to encounter a warden. As a warden, he had his finger on the pulse of the wildlife and public, and he applied that knowledge to merge the management of the wildlife resource and public demands within his district. Meanwhile, at every opportunity, he continued his education efforts, including providing a conservation program for all 9th grade students in the Natrona County School District. He also presented a program to all Casper 4th graders on fur-bearing animals and trapping, in conjunction with a chapter in their Wyoming history book on mountain men. One of the students in these classes was the current chief game warden, Jay Lawson. Chuck was an active member in the Wildlife Society, the American Society of Ecologists and Herpetologists, Phi Sigma Biological Honoree, Wyoming Peace Officers Association, Casper Red Cross Water Safety Commission, Casper Community Board of Recreation Directors, Boy Scouts of America as Cub Master, Scout Master, District and Council Camping and Activities Chairman, Explorer Post Advisor, and Wyoming Game Wardens Association. Chuck was a certified casting instructor for the National Angling and Fly Fishing Organization, NRA Police Firearms Instructor, and Wyoming Hunter Safety Instructor. Following his retirement in 1981, Chuck continued in the education field as a science and computer science instructor in the Torrington School System, Eastern Wyoming College, and Darby School District in Darby, Montana. Following retirement from his second career, he and his wife Wilma moved to Puyallup, Washington to be near their family. Since living in the Puyallup area, he has received the President's Volunteer Service Award for volunteer service to the community, This included 6 years assisting first and second graders to improve their reading skills and helping judge the Puyallup School District Science Fair.